Hello, everyone, and welcome to this on-demand front training for understanding workflows. In this training, for about the next 30 minutes, we are going to walk you through how to start setting up your workflow inside of Front, regardless of your team, of your industry. So whether you are a sales team in logistics operations, you work for a B2B company primarily in support, this training will help you understand how your Front should be set up in order to maximize your positive business outcomes. My name is Matthew from our customer success team, and I'm so excited to have all of you here. What we'll be going over in our agenda for this training is first understanding what it means to have workflow inside Front. Then we will actually walk through the different sections of what we call OTCAR, OTCAR. That stands for organizing your inboxes, triaging your conversations, classifying and accelerating all of your work inside of Front, and then finishing with reporting. So we will actually break down each of these sections together and how you can start thinking about it for your team. By the end of this training, we actually have a few learning outcomes that we want you to walk away understanding. So first is beginning to understand the necessary steps you need to take to actually build your workflow inside of Front. Second, we want you to understand this OTCAR methodology. Third, we want you to understand how workflows apply to specific team examples. So as I'm going throughout this training, I'll actually give a few examples of how this could apply to your team. And lastly, we want you to actually apply these learnings to your Front configuration. So whether you are onboarding with Front's onboarding team or you're doing it yourself in a self-paced and self-guided method, we want you to take this training and start applying that to your Front instance. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. First, understanding workflows, how to think about it, how to talk about it with your team, with your admins, and with your end users. So here at Front, we know that every business works a little bit differently, but at their core, they can really be broken down into three different parts. First, the people. Who actually does the work on your team? Second, the process. So how does that work get done? I'm sure many of you already have internal processes that you're using today. Some of them might work really well, others might be broken. And I'm guessing part of those broken ones might be the reason why you came to Front, and we're going to help fix them. And third, these are our channels. So this is how our customers actually contact us or reach out to us, whether it's via email, whether they're actually texting us or using WhatsApp. Maybe some of you are relying on social media like Facebook, Twitter, or other various channels. Inside Front, all of these will actually come together. So your people, your processes, and your channels. And we actually want to break that down to help you organize, triage, classify, accelerate, and report on these workflows. So you can think of your workflow in Front as getting your information, how it's going to be handled, and by who. And that's where our OTCAR methodology comes to life. The first thing we want to do is determine our structure inside Front. So how do we actually set up those inboxes? Next, we want to triage all of those messages. We need to decide who is working on what. Third, we want to classify or categorize our conversations to help our team understand what topics those conversations are about. Then we want to accelerate our process. So how can we actually build some automation in our workflow so that our process is getting done even faster? And lastly, we want to report on all of this information so we understand how our team is performing. So first, let's go ahead and dive into that O, organizing your information. Inside Front, you have both channels and inboxes. So let's go ahead and break those down and just walk through some of the terminology we at Front use. First, being a channel. A channel is the actual communication medium that people are writing to get in touch with you with. So for example, this could be an email. So the actual email address, like hello@front.com, support@front.com. It could be the number that they are texting, or it could be the form that they're filling out on your website. An inbox, this is the place, the organizational container, the actual physical space that houses those channels or those conversations. We also have empty inboxes inside Front. This is that organizational container, that space that's not actually linked to any channel. So at the end of the day, what happens? Channels will live in inboxes, but you might have some inboxes that don't have a channel going directly there. And we'll talk about how to move those messages there. So when we break this down, you might actually have a one-to-one relationship in some of this organization. So inboxes with one channel. So this is basically going to be an inbox that just has one of these email addresses, one of these social media sites, one of these phone numbers. You want to use this type of relationship when it's going to have much more clarity on that message list. Basically, you know exactly what is going to go inside of that inbox. It's also going to allow you to set different inactivity periods for your channel. Basically, you are telling Front how long you want to have messages active or inactive when you're thinking about things like analytics or some of the rules that you might want to trigger. This also allows for your team to have a clear partition of the work between different teams and business owners. For example, support @ is going to go into a support inbox. Sales @ is going to go into a sales inbox. You know that support works out of the support inbox and sales works out of the sales inbox. Inboxes with one channel are also a very easy way to slice and dice all of your information inside of Front Analytics. Now, some of you might actually want to build inboxes with multiple channels. So basically, you might have 3 email addresses all living inside the same inbox. Or as you can see here from this image, you might have your Twitter, your Facebook Messenger, and your WhatsApp all inside that same inbox. When you want to do this is basically when you need a consolidated place, one single place for all of that information when it's to be handled by the same team. For example, you might have a support team and they actually respond to all of the emails that you get to support @ hello @ and contact @ all of those can go inside that support inbox because it's the same team that is going to handle or triage those messages. This is also great when you have channel SLAs. Basically, when you want to have all of these SLAs across the board for this inbox. So in this example, you have a 2-hour SLA for your social media. So your Twitter, your Messenger, and your WhatsApp. You can build those rules across this entire inbox. Now, some of you might also want to build empty inboxes. Empty inboxes, as I mentioned, don't actually have a channel directly associated to them. In these cases, when you might want to use empty inboxes is first when you want to route messages to a dedicated workspace for escalation or specialization. For example, you might actually have an escalation tier. As you can see from this image, you have support when there might be an emergency, a bug, a breakdown that you really have to escalate this to a new team. That's when you can move it from your main inbox with the channel to an empty inbox for that emergency. You might also use this for process specialization. So let's say you actually have a finance team. Some of those groups actually work on specific invoices or specific requests. Therefore, you can have everything come into finance and just move those that need to be handled or triaged by that certain specialization in your finance team. Now, I will say a pro tip here is to make sure that teammates have access only to the inboxes that they need. Specifically, when you think about sensitive topics like HR, finance, or other topics that you might have at your business, you want to make sure that you have changed or set the permissions so that your teammates only have access just to those topics of conversation, and that you're not exposing all of maybe those sensitive topics that not everyone should see. So let me go ahead and hop into front here and actually walk you through these different inboxes. So over here on the left-hand side, we can actually see all of those inboxes that we have by our different teams inside front. So here in our customer success team, we have a customer success inbox, a WhatsApp channel, as well as our website chat. And with sales, we actually have our sales inbox, we have SMS, our phone, Facebook, and Twitter. So let's go ahead and focus on our customer success team here. You're able to add your inboxes and see all of your channels inside your company admin settings for those of you who are company admins. So here I can come to inboxes and I can see all of those inboxes that we've created. Here, you can actually see all of the different channels that live inside each inbox. So in our customer success, you can see all of those channels that are going here, whether they're directly going into the inbox or they're actually moving into the inbox via rules to make sure that everything is coming here. So in this case, we have multiple channels that are moving conversations into this inbox. If we go back to our inboxes, you might also see an empty inbox right here. Basically, nothing is automatically going here, and you need to build rules to actually move things in to those inboxes. So in this example inbox, we have no channels, going here, but we're going to move conversations out of that inbox with 4 different rules. So here you can actually see all of that information. If you click on channels right here, you will be able to add additional channels to those inboxes. So whether you want to just have a one-to-one relationship and just have an email, or just have a WhatsApp or a chat application, or if you already have one channel inside an inbox, let's say WhatsApp, for example, and now we actually want to add another WhatsApp number, let's go ahead, select channels, add a channel, and then we can add that new WhatsApp number. So ultimately, when we think about adding our inboxes, we really want to think about who are the groups of people that are going to be handling those conversations and how we want to break those out. Do we want all of them to funnel into one inbox? Probably if it's the same group of people, the same type of messages, we might want to do that. Or if we have different groups of people, sales, support, and customer success, we might actually have different inboxes for those different teams. So let's go ahead and hop back to our presentation and walk through triaging our conversations. So now that we have all of our information inside front, we need to determine who actually is going to handle all of those conversations. With front, we do want you to start to think about triaging your process as something that you would automate before you actually launch to your team. So you can build some of this with our rules to actually route messages to the right person automatically so that they can respond faster. This is also a great way to automate some of those repetitive tasks like assignment to actually save time and increase your team's efficiency. We have 3 different routing methodologies that we recommend to clients and customers for each of their inboxes. So let's go ahead and start with our first one, being the pull methodology. The pull methodology is where you have everyone working in one inbox, and the way that they get messages assigned to them is basically by going in and grabbing it. Each individual is pulling out those messages for themselves. So this is really great for generalists. It's really easy for people who are first coming to front and they're still getting used to some of that behavior. An individual can go in, they can pull their own clients that they see going into that inbox. Or if I know that I'm an expert on this type of message that was written in, I'm going to go in, I'm going to pull it and reply for our team. Some potential pains that you might experience with this methodology is that it doesn't always scale really well. If you just have maybe 4 or 5 people in that inbox, this can work fairly well. If you have 300, might not be as easy to have everyone going in and polling those conversations. It also doesn't work super well with high volume, because if you have thousands of messages coming into that operations inbox, it's actually quite tedious to go in and have that manual step to pull all of those messages. The other potential pain that you might have with the poll methodology is it's not going to have an equal partition of all of that work that you have for individuals. So I might only pull one message, while my colleague Maggie might go in and pull 10. She is probably doing a bit more in responding to those 10 conversations than me with just one. Our next methodology is the quarterback methodology. This is where you have one admin, one team lead, one manager who is responsible for assigning out those conversations that go into your inbox. So in this example from this image, we have a sales inbox. So if a customer wants to reach out to us, they write to sales at, whether it's to upgrade their plan, maybe they want a demo as a prospect, they're all going to reach to sales at. Our sales manager is then going to go in and assign those conversations to the rep who is responsible for handling or triaging those requests. Some of the value that you get here is you do have that expertise where I know as a manager, I have 2 people who are going to be responsible for demo requests. I have 2 people who are responsible for quotes, and I can go in, I can manually assign to those individuals. This is also good if you have some shifts that are involved where I know, let's say our APAC sales team or our team in the USA, we have our manager who is going to assign to their reps that are online when the US is online, and we might have a group that is in Singapore, and we have our manager who will assign manually with this quarterback method to that group. You also have some human intelligence in this. For many of you who are getting these conversations, you still might need some human eyes to actually read that conversation and understand who is responsible. Let's say we are a logistics operations team and we see a weather incident. I need to first read that to know that this is an incident, and I'm going to assign it to Matthew in order for him to respond, as he's the individual who responds to all of those weather incidents. Some potential pain that you might experience in this methodology is, again, that poor scalability. So if you have 300 reps who are working out of that inbox, might be difficult to have one manager manually going in and assigning. Again, the same thing with high volumes, that one person having to assign thousands of conversations in a day might be fairly difficult for them. The other potential pain that you might need to worry about is that there is some level of risk, as it does heavily rely on that quarterback. So basically that individual, that team lead, that manager, that director, they are the ones responsible for delegating that work, delegating those conversations. So you do have to make sure that you are able to rely on them. Our third methodology is the push methodology. This is where you are going to build rules to automatically route messages to the right individuals. The value of this push methodology is that you do have scalability, that you can build one rule and that will apply automatically to all of those messages within those rule parameters. You can have things like an equal distribution of work. You can even build rules that are based on individuals' expertise if you know some of those predictive qualities. And pretty much once you've set them up, there's no more effort required to continue to build those rules. Maybe you want to iterate on them a bit, but there's just that initial lift as opposed to constantly having to go in to change some of those assignments or rely on individuals. Some potential pain here is that generating too many rules or building too many rules can increase some of your complexity inside front, as well as you are going to miss that human intelligence piece. So if you do need somebody to actually read that message to understand what it's about or what that client is asking to assign it, a rule might not always catch that. So some common routing rules that we like to think of or recommend to clients as they're building out their triage processes. First are by client. So if you are a professional services team, actually routing to the representative who is responsible for those clients or for those partners. You can also do it by keyword. So if we know that on our finance team that Samantha is responsible for handling all of those invoices, actually route something to her if it has an invoice. You can do it by contact group. So if you have a VIP customer contact group, or maybe an East Coast, West Coast, or by country, you can route those contact groups to the right field. And you can also use our API to actually build customization inside front to route based on information such as your CRM. So have front go look up who is that account owner in Salesforce and route to that person. So let me hop back here inside front and just walk through this routing. So first, we have all of our conversations coming in to this customer success inbox for all of our emails. Now, what we want to do is assign those conversations or triage them. So as I mentioned, you have your poll methodology. So this is an individual coming in here and assigning something to themselves when they're responsible for handling. You also might have quarterback methodology. This is where I actually go in, I'm the team director, I'm going to assign this to the individual who is responsible for handling it. So I will start to go through these conversations and assign to those individuals when they're responsible for handling. Or you might have our push methodology by coming to rules inside our company settings. You can build those common routing rules to actually automatically assign those conversations. You can find many of those rules pre-populated as templates here in your rules library. You can select assign and actually see all of the different assignments that we recommend when you're building out this workflow. So now that we've organized our inboxes, we've begun to triage to the right people. We also want to categorize or classify all of the information that we have coming inside front. We are going to do this with what we call tags. Tags are like your folders or your labels that you might have used before coming to front. And you can use tags to actually categorize critical topics, report on key trends, or even use them to sort messages automatically. So you can track information like an incident, a bug request, a VIP customer, anything that you are tracking today or you're hoping to track or categorize, that can be done with a tag. You can use tags to categorize by customer type. So if you want to look at your region, the actual client, maybe you want to categorize whether they are a vendor or a partner, you can categorize or tag by message category. So to actually look at feature requests, a bug, a claim, any category that you're hoping to track for your business. Tags are also great to look at urgency, whether you have an urgent message, something that needs a reply, or you have an SLA breach or an SLA warning because your team didn't respond quickly enough. And lastly, tags are also great to categorize by certain events. So if you're actually running a marketing campaign or a discount for your end of quarter, you can categorize these with tags to say, this is our 2021 end of year discount or holiday special. You can actually categorize and track all of that information as well. In building your workflow, We do want you to know that tags can actually be used to trigger more automation and rules. So basically, let's say we get a new message inside Front. It's related to our webinar. What we might do is actually tag that with webinar. Maybe we go and reply. When that customer writes back in and we get a new message, it already has that tag webinar. So we can build automation to say any conversation that does have this tag that comes in, do some action, take some action on that conversation automatically with Front rules. You can also use these rules to take action outside of Front. So let's say we get a new message, it's related to COVID. Every time we tag it with that COVID related or that webinar tag, then go and actually make a change in our CRM. So you can build rules that do this outside of Front as well. Now, when we talk about our different categorization for customers, we also want you to know that you do have the ability to build accounts inside Front. So accounts are basically going to be all of those companies or organizations that you work with. Because of this, we don't always recommend tagging by customer, because as your business is growing, you're probably getting more customers every day. So that's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of tags that you need to manage. Instead, categorize your information with accounts. So determine that email domain that that business uses. Add any of those relevant fields that you want to know about that business. So maybe you want to know how much they're paying you, who their individual account manager is, and you can even upload all of that information directly in Front with a CSV. So again, don't necessarily think about having a need for tagging each one of your clients. Instead, leverage accounts to help you categorize that information. So now that we've gone through our O, T, and C, let's talk about accelerating your processes. The way that we are going to do this is through rules. Now, every team, every business, they are going to have different rules based on how they're working or what they're hoping to automate today. But ultimately, every team will need to determine predictive qualities when building these rules. Basically, when constructing these rules, think about what are some of those qualities that you know will happen to help put logic on those rules so that you're getting very granular and specific for when that rule should trigger. So for example, inside your rules, your predictive qualities are going to be this if section. If a specific email address contains maybe front.com, or it contains another business that you're working with. Maybe the subject line contains urgent or needs reply or help. Maybe the body has some specific language in that conversation. So these are going to be all of those predictive qualities that you will want to start to build for your rules. If you do have questions about rules, always feel free to reach out to our team and give us some examples of what you're hoping to automate, and we can definitely make sure to help guide you in the right direction. We also like to recommend to have some uniformity when building out your workflow to help automate and accelerate your processes. This is going to happen with message templates. Message templates are exactly what they sound like. Basically a pre-populated template to help you, with the click of a button, populate that whole email template, maybe a few bullets, maybe it's an agenda, something that your team is having to type over and over and over again, those commonly used phrases or messages. Pre-populate that for your team already so that you already have uniformity, consistency, and now speed in your replies. You can even leverage dynamic variables to personalize these message templates. So that way you can add first name, you can add custom information that you would want them to have. A pro tip here is that I also recommend pairing rules with message templates. So you can actually build a message template and then have a rule to say, if something happens or something is not met, then automatically respond with this message template that we've built. One common one that we always recommend for teams is an out of office or an office hours type message template. If you get a message that's after your office closes, maybe at 8 p.m., automatically respond with our out of office message template to let customer know that you've received their inquiry, but you'll respond as soon as you get into the office tomorrow morning. Now, our last part of our OTCAR training for workflow is going to be reporting this information on team performance. Inside front, all of this information is going to be gathered in analytics. So part of building out this workflow is going to be pairing with analytics to actually help you determine and track those key performance indicators for your team and your business. You can use all of this workflow information to add or apply as filters to your analytics reports. So whether you want to filter on the certain teammates that you have in front, or those inboxes and channels. So as we talked about organizing those inboxes, you can filter all of your reports just based on those inboxes. Maybe you actually want to filter based on everything that has a certain tag. So anything that has been tagged with bug request or product request, you can build a report just to look at that. So ultimately, all of this workflow is going to pair with how you're going to leverage and view your analytics inside front. Now, I do want to wrap up here with a few next steps because I know that this can be a lot of information to take in as you start to build or think about your workflow. So the first thing that you want to do or that we recommend is listing all of your channels of communication. How are customers reaching out to you today? List all of those emails, all of those distribution groups, all of those social media channels. Second, map your channels to the people who actually work on them or who respond to them. Then that's going to help you determine the different inboxes that you need to have, whether it is one inbox with multiple channels, a one-to-one relationship, or an empty inbox. Third, for each of those inboxes, determine that triage methodology, whether it should be that push, pull, or quarterback methodology. And then fourth, think about what are those critical categories that you have in order to start building some of those tags so that whenever you launch front for your team, you're already tracking that information from day one. Now, another pro tip here is to start simple. If you have any questions about organizing, triaging, classifying, automating, or reporting this information, please, please, please reach out to us at onboarding@front.com or your onboarding manager if you get stuck. We are more than happy to help think through how you should set up and provide some guidance and best practices. So now we do hope that you can walk away from these past 30 minutes understanding the necessary steps to begin building out that workflow inside front. We hope that you're able to walk away understanding that OTCAR methodology that you should walk through as you're starting to put together this workflow. We also hope that you're going to begin applying these learnings to your front configuration. So feel free to stop watching this webinar. I'm going to wrap up very shortly. That way you can open up front and start building away. And with that, thank you all for your time and attention. And we hope that you all have an amazing time building your workflow.